The massive crystal dome of Vex Prime sparkled under the light of 3 suns. Inside the Great Hall, 12 different alien species sat around a circular table that could fit a small spaceship. The air buzzed with translation devices working overtime to turn growls, clicks, and musical tones into words everyone could understand. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire stood tall on his 4 legs. His blue skin showed the battle scars that made him famous across the galaxy. His voice boomed through the hall like thunder. "Council members," he began, "we have discovered another primitive species on the outer rim. They call themselves humans." The other ambassadors barely looked up. New species were found every few years. Most were either too primitive to matter or too aggressive to survive long. Either way, they rarely became important. "What makes them special?" asked High Priestess Veltar from the Crystalline Collective. Her diamond-like body reflected the light as she spoke. Kethvar activated a hologram above the table. A small blue planet appeared, spinning slowly. "This is their home world. They call it Earth. Our scouts report they have basic space travel, but nothing impressive. Their biggest ships are barely large enough to carry a few dozen beings." The image changed to show human cities. The buildings looked simple compared to the towering metal forests of Zephyrian worlds or the living crystal cities of the Collective. "Population?" asked General Slacks, his insect-like mandibles clicking with each word. The Slacks hegemony was always interested in new species to conquer and enslave. "Around 8 billion, Kethvar replied. "But they seem peaceful. No major wars for several decades. They spend most of their time growing food and making art." Several council members laughed. Art and farming were what weak species did when they could not fight or build proper technology. "Do they have any useful resources?" General Slacks pressed. His compound eyes glittered with greed. "Some metals and organic materials. Nothing we cannot get easier elsewhere," Kethvar said. "But they have sent an ambassador. She should arrive soon." As if on cue, the great doors of the council chamber opened. The sound echoed through the hall like a whisper. Through the doors walked a small figure that made several council members lean forward in curiosity. Dr. Sarah Chen looked exactly like what the galaxy expected from a primitive species. She was small, barely reaching the waist of most council members. Her skin was a soft brown color and she wore simple clothes that looked handmade. She carried a basic translation device and what appeared to be a gift box. "Honored council members," she said, her voice soft and respectful. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen, representing humanity. We are grateful for this chance to speak with you." Kethvar gestured to a small chair that had been brought for her. It looked tiny next to the massive seats of the other ambassadors. "Tell us about your species," High Priestess Veltar said, her tone kind but clearly talking down to someone she saw as a child. Sarah smiled warmly. "We are a young species still learning about the galaxy. We love to explore and learn new things. Our greatest joy comes from understanding different cultures and sharing knowledge." "What do you want from the Galactic Council?" General Slacks asked bluntly. "Protection and trade opportunities," Sarah replied honestly. "We know we are small and weak compared to your great civilizations. We hope to earn our place through peaceful cooperation." The council members exchanged glances. This was exactly what they expected. Another weak species looking for someone stronger to protect them. "What can you offer in trade?" asked Chancellor Morden of the Techno-Republic. His mechanical body whirred as he spoke. Sarah opened her gift box. Inside were samples of Earth foods, simple jewelry, and what looked like primitive art. "We have unique foods and handcrafted items. We also have many scientists eager to learn from your advanced technologies." Several council members tried the Earth foods. They were surprisingly good, but nothing revolutionary. The art was pleasant but basic. Everything confirmed what they thought about humans. "We also love to study history and culture," Sarah continued. "If any of your civilizations would welcome researchers, we would be honored to learn from you." Kethvar nodded approvingly. "The Zephyrian Empire has many proud traditions. We would not mind showing a few humans our military academies and museums. The Mektari would be happy to show humans our factories," added Ambassador Zixtal, his insect-like body clicking with amusement. "Perhaps seeing real technology will inspire them to improve their own primitive methods." Other council members made similar offers. It was entertaining to play teacher to such an obviously harmless species. "What about defensive capabilities?" General Slacks asked, always thinking about military matters. Sarah looked embarrassed. "We have small ships for local protection, but nothing compared to your great fleets. We hope that joining the galactic community will make such things unnecessary. This answer satisfied everyone. A species that admitted its own weakness was not a threat. The Council quickly voted to accept humanity as a Class C peaceful entity. This gave them basic trading rights and protection under galactic law, but no political power or military status. Welcome to the galactic community, High Priestess Veltar announced formally. May your species find peace and prosperity under our guidance. Sarah bowed deeply. Thank you for this great honor. Humanity will remember your kindness. As the meeting ended, Council members felt good about themselves. They had done their duty, protecting another weak species from the dangers of the galaxy. The humans would provide some interesting food and art, maybe a few amusing research projects, and in return, they would live safely under the protection of their betters. What none of them noticed was how carefully Sarah had studied each of them during the meeting. Her soft brown eyes had taken in every detail of their technologies, their attitudes, their relationships with each other. Her simple translation device was more advanced than it appeared, recording not just words but emotional tones and stress patterns. They also did not notice the tiny devices hidden in her clothing, so small they looked like decorations. These were taking detailed scans of the council chamber, mapping security systems and analyzing the composition of alien technologies. As Sarah left the Great Hall, she seemed like exactly what she claimed to be, a humble representative of a peaceful species, grateful for the protection of stronger civilizations. The truth was very different. Dr. Sarah Chen had 3 doctorate degrees in xenopsychology, military strategy, and systems analysis. She had spent 5 years preparing for this moment, studying every piece of information humanity had gathered about galactic civilizations. Her mission was not to beg for protection. It was to convince the galaxy that humanity was too weak to be worth watching carefully. In this, she had succeeded perfectly. As her small ship left Vex Prime, Sarah activated a secure communication channel. Her soft, respectful voice was gone, replaced by the crisp tones of a military briefing. Command, this is Chen. Mission accomplished. All targets have accepted the deception. They see us exactly as we want them to see us. Admiral Patricia Hawkins's voice came back across the void. Excellent work, Doctor. Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2 immediately. Sarah smiled as she set course for the Zephyrian Empire. She had invitations to visit military academies and weapons facilities. The Zephyrians thought they were doing her a favor by showing off their power to a primitive human. They had no idea they were about to give humanity the keys to their own destruction. 5 years had passed since humanity joined the galactic community. In that time, humans had become a familiar sight throughout known space. Their small trading ships visited every major world, carrying exotic goods from Earth and always eager to learn about alien cultures. Captain Marcus Rodriguez walked through the corridors of Zephyrian Battle Station Omega-7, one of the most secure military installations in the galaxy. His human appearance drew curious looks from the tall, blue-skinned Zephyrian soldiers, but they had grown used to seeing his kind around. Captain Rodriguez called Commander Thexar, approaching with the confident stride of a career military officer. Back for another research visit? Marcus smiled warmly. Commander, good to see you again. Yes, my government is still fascinated by Zephyrian military engineering. We hope to improve our own small defense force by studying your methods. Thexar laughed, a sound like distant thunder. Your defense force consists of what, 20 ships? We have more vessels than that defending a single moon. Exactly why we have so much to learn, Marcus replied humbly. Earth's military leaders dream of understanding even a fraction of Zephyrian strategy. This was exactly what Thexar liked to hear. The Zephyrians took great pride in their military superiority, and they enjoyed showing it off to appreciative audiences. Having humans ask detailed questions about their weapons and tactics felt like teaching children about warfare. Come, Thexar said, leading Marcus toward the tactical center. I will show you our new plasma cannon designs. Perhaps your people can build smaller versions for your planet's defense. As they walked, Marcus asked seemingly innocent questions about weapon ranges, power requirements, and targeting systems. To the Zephyrians, these seemed like the queries of someone trying to understand concepts far beyond his primitive technology. In reality, Marcus was a former Earth military intelligence officer with degrees in engineering and strategic analysis. Every detail he gathered was being carefully memorized and would be transmitted to Earth within hours. Meanwhile, on the industrial world of Mektar, Dr. Elena Vasquez was having her own productive day. The insect-like Mektari had grown quite fond of the curious human scientist who had spent 3 years studying their manufacturing processes. Dr. Vasquez, buzzed Foreman Clicktar, his mandibles clicking in what passed for Mektari laughter. You have spent more time in our factories than some of our own engineers. Elena wiped sweat from her forehead as she emerged from beneath a massive assembly machine. Your production methods are so efficient, Foreman. Earth's primitive factories could learn so much from your innovations. Primitive is right, Clicktar agreed, but your enthusiasm makes up for your lack of knowledge. What are you studying today? Power distribution systems, Elena replied, checking her notes. I'm trying to understand how you manage energy flow to keep such large operations running smoothly. Clicktar was happy to explain. Over the years, he had shown Elena every aspect of Mektari industrial operations. She had mapped their power grids, studied their transportation networks, and documented their resource storage facilities. To the Mektari, she was a harmless academic gathering information that would take decades for her primitive species to implement. They had no idea that Elena was actually a specialist in infrastructure warfare. Her real mission was to identify the critical vulnerabilities that could shut down Mektari industry with surgical precision. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Humans were everywhere, always welcomed, always underestimated. They were the perfect guests, polite, grateful, and seemingly harmless. Dr. James Park spent his days in the crystal libraries of the collective, claiming to research alien literature for Earth's cultural development. In reality, he was studying crystalline communication networks and defense protocols. Lieutenant Sarah Kim worked as a trade liaison on Slack's worlds, supposedly learning about their economic systems. Her real focus was mapping their military supply chains and identifying command structures. Professor Michael Chang taught Earth languages at Techno-Republic universities, while secretly analyzing their cybernetic defense systems and artificial intelligence networks. Every human in the galaxy was exactly where they needed to be, gathering exactly the information they had been sent to collect. The Galactic Council occasionally noticed human ships in unusual locations, but their tracking systems consistently identified them as civilian vessels on legitimate research or trading missions. The humans were always happy to explain their presence and provide documentation for their activities. What the aliens did not realize was that human technology was far more advanced than it appeared. Earth ships carried stealth systems that could fool any scanner in the galaxy. Their communication networks used quantum encryption that was impossible to intercept. Their computers could hack alien systems while leaving no trace of their presence. Humanity had spent generations preparing for contact with alien civilizations. While other species focused on building bigger weapons and stronger armor, humans had perfected the art of deception and intelligence gathering. On Earth, deep within a hidden facility in the asteroid belt, Admiral Patricia Hawkins watched the flow of information from across the galaxy. Every report from every human agent was analyzed, categorized, and integrated into a massive database of alien weaknesses. Admiral, called Commander Lisa Zhang from her workstation. We have updated intelligence on Zephyrian fleet movements. Captain Rodriguez confirmed their patrol patterns around the Rigel system. Excellent, Hawkins replied. Add it to the tactical database. How is our timeline looking? All targets are progressing on schedule, Zhang reported. Dr. Vasquez completed mapping Mektari industrial vulnerabilities last week. Dr. Park cracked the crystalline communication protocols yesterday. We should be ready to proceed to Phase 3 within the month. Hawkins nodded with satisfaction. Phase 1 had convinced the galaxy that humanity was harmless. Phase 2 had placed human agents in position to gather critical intelligence. Soon it would be time for Phase 3, the revelation that would change everything. The Admiral looked at the massive star map covering one wall of the command center. Red dots marked alien military installations. Blue dots showed human agent positions. Yellow lines traced supply routes and communication networks. Green markers indicated critical infrastructure points. After 5 years of careful work, humanity knew more about galactic civilizations than they knew about themselves. Every weakness had been cataloged. Every vulnerability had been mapped. Every possible response had been anticipated and countered. The aliens still saw humans as primitive traders and eager students. They had no idea that they were looking at the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. "Commander Zhang," Hawkins said quietly, "send a message to all our people. Tell them to prepare for final data collection. Phase 3 begins in 30 days. Yes, Admiral. Should I include the go code for our sleeper assets? Not yet, Hawkins replied. Let them maintain their covers a little longer. When we move, I want our enemies to be completely surprised. As the Admiral spoke, Captain Rodriguez was accepting another invitation to tour Zephyrian weapons facilities. Dr. Vasquez was being given access to even more sensitive Mekhtari industrial sites. Across the galaxy, aliens were eagerly sharing their secrets with the harmless humans who seemed so grateful to learn from their betters. None of them suspected that their teachers were actually their future conquerors, patiently gathering the knowledge they would need to bring down galactic civilization in a single, perfectly coordinated strike. The galaxy had marked humanity as harmless, and humanity had used that mistake to position themselves for the most devastating military campaign in galactic history. General Slack stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devourer, watching the human colony world of New Haven grow larger on the view screen. 3 small planets orbited a quiet star on the galaxy's outer rim. According to intelligence reports, fewer than 2 million humans lived across all 3 worlds. Such a pathetic display, hissed his second-in-command, Colonel Vextar. Look at their orbital defenses. A few small platforms with primitive weapons. We could destroy them with a single destroyer. General Slacks clicked his mandibles in agreement. The Slacks' hegemony had grown bold over the past year, claiming tribute from weaker species across their territory. Humanity had prospered under galactic protection for 5 years. It was time they learned their place in the natural order. Send the demand, Slacks ordered. Standard terms. 20% of their annual production as tribute for our protection services. If they refuse, we take 40% and a few thousand slaves. The communication went out to the human colonies. General Slacks expected the usual response: fear, negotiations, and eventual surrender. Weak species always followed the same pattern. Instead, something impossible happened. "General," shouted the sensor operator, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the human ships." On the view screen, the small human vessels began to change. Stealth fields that should not exist flickered and died, revealing ships 3 times larger than they had appeared. Weapon ports opened along their hulls, exposing armaments that made Slacks' officers gasp in shock. "That's impossible," Colonel Vextar whispered. "Our sensors showed them as civilian transports. All ships, battle stations." General Slacks roared, but it was already too late. The human ships moved with predatory grace, their weapon systems charging with energies that registered off the scale. When they fired, Slacks watched in horror as his escort vessels simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no debris. The ships were there one moment and gone the next, reduced to atomic particles by weapons technology that surpassed anything in the galaxy. "Retreat," Slacks screamed. "All ships retreat." But the human vessels had already surrounded his fleet using some form of faster-than-light positioning technology. His ships could not escape because the humans were everywhere at once. The Devourer shuddered as human weapons found their target. Slacks felt his flagship dying around him as systems failed in precisely calculated sequences. The humans were not trying to destroy his ship quickly. They were dissecting it piece by piece, keeping him alive long enough to witness his complete defeat. As emergency lights flickered in the failing bridge, a human voice came over the communication system. "General Slacks," the voice said calmly. "This is Admiral Patricia Hawkins of the Earth Defense Force. Your fleet has been neutralized. Surrender now and your crews will be spared." "This is impossible." Slacks raged into his communicator. "You are primitives. Farmers and artists. We are what we needed you to think we were," Admiral Hawkins replied. "Consider this lesson 1. Never underestimate your prey." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out in 12 star systems simultaneously. The Zephyrian Empire's Grand Admiral Corexval was leading his finest battle group on a training exercise when human ships appeared from nowhere. His vessels, pride of the galactic military, found themselves outmatched by human technology that operated on principles they could not understand. "How are they moving like that?" demanded Corexval as human ships seemed to teleport around his formations. "Our sensors show them in one position, Then they appear somewhere else instantly. His tactical officer was too busy trying to coordinate a defense to answer. The Zephyrian fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to know every weakness in their design. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Hawkins watched 12 different battles unfold on holographic displays. Each engagement was proceeding exactly as planned. 5 years of intelligence gathering had paid off perfectly. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving surrender requests from 7 different fleets. The Zephyrians are still fighting, but their formation is collapsing." "What about the industrial targets?" Hawkins asked. "Right on schedule," replied her tactical coordinator. Dr. Vasquez's intelligence on Mektari power grids was perfect. Their industrial capacity is down 60% and falling. On Mektar Prime, the planet's massive factories were going dark one by one. Human strike teams, using the detailed maps Dr. Vasquez had created, were hitting power distribution nodes with surgical precision. The insect-like inhabitants watched in shock as decades of industrial development shut down in coordinated waves. Foreman Klicktar stood in his disabled control room, emergency lights casting strange shadows on his compound eyes. "How do they know exactly where to strike?" He buzzed to his staff. "It's as if they built our power grid themselves." His assistant brought up security footage from the past 3 years, showing Dr. Elena Vasquez working throughout their facilities. "The human scientist," he whispered. "She was not studying our methods to copy them. She was learning how to destroy them." The revelation struck the Mektari like a physical blow. The harmless human researcher they had grown fond of was actually a saboteur who had mapped every critical system on their world. Similar realizations were dawning across the galaxy. On crystalline worlds, their communication networks were being turned against them using protocols Dr. Park had secretly cracked. Techno-Republic cybernetic systems were failing as Professor Chang's hidden programs activated. Slack supply lines were collapsing as Lieutenant Kim's carefully placed disruptions took effect. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session on Vex Prime, but even their secure facility was not safe. Human ships appeared in the system without triggering any alarms, their stealth technology making them invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. High Priestess Veltar tried to maintain her dignity as reports flooded in from across civilized space. "How is this possible?" she asked the empty air. They were classified as harmless. Our most detailed analyses showed primitive technology and peaceful intentions. Ambassador Kethvar, his blue skin pale with shock, activated a communication to Earth. "Dr. Chen," he said to the human who had once sat humbly in their council chamber, "what have you done?" Dr. Sarah Chen's image appeared on the main screen, but she was no longer the soft-spoken, respectful ambassador they remembered. She wore a military uniform now, her rank insignia showing her as a full colonel in Earth's intelligence service. "We showed you exactly what you expected to see," she replied calmly. "Your species looks at strength and immediately assumes you understand it. You see weapons and armor and think you comprehend military power. You never considered that true strength might come from knowledge. You deceived us," Kethavar accused. "We survived," Chen corrected. "When we discovered the galaxy was full of aggressive civilizations that viewed newcomers as either threats to be destroyed or resources to be exploited, we chose a third option. We became something you had never encountered before, an enemy that understands you better than you understand yourselves." The truth was finally clear to the council members. Humanity had never been primitive or harmless. They had been playing a game so sophisticated that their opponents had not even realized they were competing. "What do you want from us?" High Priestess Veltar asked, her crystalline voice cracking with defeat. "Surrender," Admiral Hawkins said, her voice joining the communication from the bridge of her flagship, complete and unconditional. "You have 1 hour to transmit your surrender to all human forces. After that, we stop being surgical in our strikes." The council chamber fell silent except for the distant sounds of alarms as human ships took control of Vex Prime's orbital space. The greatest military powers in the galaxy had been defeated in a single day by a species they had dismissed as harmless farmers and artists. Outside the crystal dome, human ships hung in space like silent predators waiting for the galaxy's answer. Their weapons remained powered but not targeted, a clear message that mercy was still possible if it was requested quickly. The galaxy had learned too late that humanity was not harmless. They were something far more dangerous, patient, intelligent, and prepared. The war was already over. All that remained was for the losers to admit it. The emergency session of the Galactic Council stretched into its 15th hour. Representatives from 12 major civilizations sat in stunned silence as reports continued flooding in from across their territories. The scope of humanity's deception was becoming clear, and with it the magnitude of their own failure. High Priestess Veltar's crystalline body had lost its usual brilliant shine. Stress fractures ran along her surface as she struggled to process the impossible situation. "Show me the tactical analysis again," she whispered. The holographic display activated, showing the galaxy in 3 dimensions. Red markers indicated simultaneous human strikes across hundreds of star systems. Blue lines traced the movements of human fleets that had appeared from nowhere. Yellow zones marked critical infrastructure that had been neutralized with surgical precision. They hit us everywhere at once. General Mordak of the hegemony ground out, his mandibles clicking with barely controlled rage. 17 industrial worlds, 43 military installations, and every major communication hub in our territory. How did they coordinate this without us detecting a single signal? Ambassador Kethvar studied the display with the eye of a veteran military strategist. "Look at the targeting pattern," he said slowly. "They didn't attack randomly. Every strike hit exactly the right place to cause maximum disruption with minimum loss of life. They know our systems better than we do." The revelation that had shaken him most was not the human military technology, impressive as it was. It was the intelligence operation that had made their victory possible. Every human they had encountered over the past 5 years had been a spy, gathering information with a patience and sophistication that no galactic civilization had ever imagined possible. Dr. Sarah Chen had not been a humble ambassador seeking protection. She had been a military intelligence officer studying their weaknesses and psychological profiles. Captain Rodriguez had not been an eager student of Zephyrian military tactics. He had been mapping their entire defense network. Dr. Vasquez had not been learning about Mektari manufacturing. She had been planning how to destroy it. "The worst part," High Priestess Veltar said quietly, "is that we helped them. We were so proud of our superior technology that we gave them guided tours of our most secure facilities." The Chamber's communication system activated, carrying Admiral Hawkins' voice from her flagship in orbit. "Council members, you have 30 minutes remaining to respond to our surrender demand." Kethvar leaned forward. "Admiral, may we ask what your intentions are if we surrender?" "You may ask," Hawkins replied. "But first, let me clarify your current situation. Our forces have disabled or destroyed approximately 40% of all galactic military assets. We have taken control of key industrial centers across 8 major civilizations. We have compromised your communication networks and infiltrated your computer systems." The Admiral paused, letting the implications sink in. "Most importantly, we have demonstrated that we can cripple any civilization in this galaxy within hours whenever we choose to do so. The question is not what we want. The question is what you are willing to accept." Chancellor Morden of the Techno-Republic spoke up, his mechanical voice grinding with static. "Our analysis suggests your technology is at least 50 years ahead of our most advanced systems. How is this possible for such a young species?" Dr. Chen's image joined the communication. "You assumed we were young because we had only recently achieved interstellar travel. In reality, we have been spacefaring for over 2 centuries. We simply chose not to expand beyond our home system until we understood what kind of galaxy we were entering." 2 centuries? Veltar gasped. "But our scouts reported primitive technology when they first detected your species." "Our scouts let your scouts see exactly what we wanted them to see," Chen replied. "While you were building larger ships and more powerful weapons, we were developing stealth technology, advanced materials, and quantum communication systems. Most importantly, we were studying you." The tactical display shifted to show Earth's solar system. What had appeared to be a single inhabited world was revealed to be a massive industrial complex spanning multiple planets, asteroid belts, and orbital habitats. The scale of human civilization was easily comparable to any major galactic power. "You have been watching us for 200 years?" Kethvar asked, his voice hollow with shock. "Longer," Admiral Hawkins confirmed. "We detected galactic civilization almost 3 centuries ago. We spent the first century just listening to your communications and studying your cultures. The second century was devoted to developing the technology we would need to survive contact. The third century was preparation for this moment. General Mordak slammed his clawed hand on the table. 300 years of deception. You made us believe you were primitive while you planned our conquest. We planned our survival, Chen corrected firmly. Our analysis of galactic civilization showed us two possible fates for newcomers, destruction or enslavement. We chose to create a third option. By becoming conquerors yourselves, Veltar accused. By becoming something you had never encountered, Hawkins replied. A species that defeats enemies through superior knowledge rather than superior firepower. Look at your casualties, Priestess. How many of your people have died today? Veltar checked her reports with growing amazement. The Crystalline Collective has lost 14 individuals, all from accidents during facility evacuations. Similar numbers came from other council members. Despite the devastating attacks on their infrastructure, casualties across the galaxy numbered in the hundreds rather than millions. The humans had disabled entire civilizations while barely harming their populations. That was intentional, Dr. Chen explained. We have no interest in ruling over graveyards. Dead populations cannot contribute to galactic civilization. Our goal was never to destroy you. It was to remove your ability to threaten others. What do you want from us? Chancellor Morden asked. Admiral Hawkins' voice carried the weight of absolute authority. An end to military aggression between galactic civilizations. No more conquests, no more enslavement of weaker species, no more wars of expansion. We will enforce this peace through whatever means necessary. And if we refuse, General Mordak challenged. The holographic display changed again, showing detailed schematics of every major installation in Slack space. Power grids, transportation networks, manufacturing centers, and government facilities were mapped down to individual components. Then we demonstrate that today's strikes were gentle warnings, Hawkins replied. We can shut down your entire civilization without firing a shot at your people. Your choice is simple: peace under human oversight, or technological collapse while we rebuild your societies according to our preferences. The threat was delivered without emotion, but its implications were terrifying. Humanity had not just defeated galactic military forces. They had infiltrated every system, mapped every vulnerability, and positioned themselves to control or destroy any aspect of galactic civilization they chose. You're offering us slavery, Kethavar said bitterly. We're offering you survival, Chen corrected. Your current system produces constant warfare and suffering. Species are conquered, enslaved, or destroyed based on military strength alone. We propose a different model, cooperation enforced by a species powerful enough to make aggression pointless. Why should you be the ones to rule us? High Priestess Veltar demanded. Because we already do, Admiral Hawkins replied simply. The question is whether you accept this reality peacefully, or force us to impose it through more direct methods. The council chamber fell silent as the representatives contemplated their situation. Every military asset they had counted on was either destroyed or compromised. Every secret installation had been mapped. Every defensive system had been penetrated. Humanity had not just won a war. They had demonstrated that conventional military power was obsolete when faced with an enemy that understood their opponents completely. 10 minutes remaining, Admiral Hawkins announced. The galaxy's greatest powers sat in their crystal chamber, surrounded by the wreckage of everything they thought they knew about warfare and civilization. Outside, human ships waited patiently for an answer to the ultimatum that would reshape the galaxy forever. The age of human dominance had begun not with conquest, but with the revelation that conquest had been unnecessary all along. They had already won before the first shot was fired, because they had taken the time to understand their enemies better than their enemies understood themselves. 6 months had passed since the day the galaxy learned humanity was not harmless. The great crystal chamber of Vex Prime looked the same as always, but everything else had changed. The 12 representatives who once ruled galactic civilization now gathered as subordinates, waiting for instructions from their new human. Administrators. Admiral Patricia Hawkins entered the chamber with the quiet confidence of someone who had reshaped the galaxy through superior planning rather than brute force. She wore a simple Earth military uniform, unadorned except for rank insignia that meant more than any crown or ceremonial armor ever could. Dr. Sarah Chen followed behind her, carrying a datapad containing the new galactic constitution that all civilizations would be asked to approve. The document represented months of careful negotiation between human administrators and surviving alien governments. Council members, Admiral Hawkins began, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. Thank you for gathering today. I know this transition has been difficult for all of your peoples. High Priestess Veltar's crystalline form had regained some of its shine over the past months. The crystalline collective had adapted better than most to the new reality, finding that human administration was far more benevolent than they had feared. Admiral, she said formally, the collective wishes to report full compliance with human directives. Our military forces have been disbanded and converted to civilian rescue operations. Our industrial capacity has been redirected toward infrastructure development rather than weapons production. Similar reports came from around the table. The Zephyrian Empire's vast military machine was now focused on exploration and scientific research. The Mektari industrial worlds were producing medical equipment and agricultural technology instead of weapons. The Slack's hegemony had abolished slavery entirely and was working to relocate displaced populations to suitable worlds. These changes have not been without cost, Ambassador Kethvar admitted. Many of our people struggle to understand their place in this new galaxy. For centuries, military strength defined civilization status. Now that metric is meaningless. Dr. Chen looked up from her datapad. That was always the point, Ambassador. Your old system created endless cycles of conquest and revenge. Species built weapons to defend themselves, then used those weapons to attack others who built even larger weapons in response. It was unsustainable. But what replaces it? Asked Chancellor Morden. If military power no longer determines galactic order, what does? Admiral Hawkins activated the chamber's holographic display. Instead of showing military assets and territorial boundaries, it now displayed trade routes, scientific collaborations, and cultural exchange networks that had developed over the past 6 months. Contribution, she said simply. Species are valued based on what they add to galactic civilization, not what they can destroy. The Crystalline Collective's research into energy storage has revolutionized spacecraft design. Zephyrian exploration teams have discovered 12 new habitable worlds. Mektari manufacturing innovations have improved quality of life across dozens of species. The display showed statistics that would have been impossible under the old system. Interspecies trade had increased by 300%. Scientific collaboration had produced more breakthrough discoveries in 6 months than the previous 50 years combined. Most remarkably, not a single war or conquest had been attempted anywhere in the galaxy. How do you maintain this peace? General Mordak asked. The former Slack's military leader had been appointed as coordinator for refugee resettlement programs. Surely some species will eventually challenge human authority. Some have tried, Admiral Hawkins replied calmly. The hegemony of Vortex attempted to rebuild their fleet last month. We detected their efforts within hours and shut down their operation without violence. The warrior clans of Sector 7 made similar attempts. Same result. Dr. Chen pulled up detailed reports on these incidents. In each case, we simply demonstrated that we still know everything about their capabilities while they know nothing about ours. The psychological impact of absolute technological superiority has proven more effective than any weapon. This was the true genius of humanity's victory. They had not just defeated galactic civilization militarily, they had made future resistance seem pointless by demonstrating capabilities so far beyond conventional understanding that challenging them felt like attacking a force of nature. What about expansion? High Priestess Veltar asked. Surely humanity intends to colonize new worlds now that you control the galaxy. We have no need for expansion, Admiral Hawkins replied. Earth's solar system provides everything we require. Our goal was never territorial conquest. It was ensuring that no other species would threaten us or continue the cycles of violence that defined galactic civilization. The alien representatives exchanged glances. This was perhaps the most difficult aspect of human rule to understand. Every species they knew expanded when they gained power. The idea of a civilization that chose restraint over growth challenged their fundamental assumptions about intelligent life. You really intend to remain in your home system? Kethvar asked in disbelief. Mostly, Dr. Chen confirmed. We maintain monitoring stations throughout the galaxy and will establish administrative centers as needed. But we have no interest in displacing existing populations or claiming new territory. Managing what we have is challenging enough. Chancellor Morden's mechanical systems whirred as he processed this information. Then what is humanity's long-term plan? You cannot monitor the galaxy forever. Admiral Hawkins smiled for the first time during the meeting. Actually, we can, but we hope we won't need to. Our goal is to create a galactic civilization mature enough to police itself. When species learn to resolve conflicts through negotiation rather than warfare, when they value creation over destruction, when they see cooperation as strength rather than weakness, then human oversight will become unnecessary. How long do you estimate this will take? Feltar asked. Generations, Dr. Chen replied honestly. Cultural change cannot be forced, only encouraged. We will remain as long as necessary to ensure these new patterns become permanent. The council members contemplated this timeline with mixed emotions. Most had hoped human rule would be temporary, but they were beginning to understand that their new administrators were thinking in terms of centuries rather than years. There is one more matter to discuss, Admiral Hawkins said, activating a new section of the holographic display. We have detected 17 species on the galaxy's outer rim that have not yet achieved interstellar travel. Under the old system, these worlds would eventually be conquered or destroyed by more advanced civilizations. The display showed developing worlds with populations ranging from millions to billions. Some were still in their equivalent of humanity's medieval period. Others had achieved early industrial technology. A few were on the verge of space travel. We propose a different approach, Dr. Chen explained. Protected development zones where these species can evolve naturally without outside interference. When they eventually reach the stars, they will find a galaxy at peace rather than one consumed by warfare. You would protect them from us? General Mordek asked. We would protect them from the mistakes all of our civilizations made, Admiral Hawkins corrected. The cycle of conquest and revenge that consumed galactic civilization for millennia. These species deserve the chance to develop without that burden. The proposal represented everything that had changed about galactic civilization under human rule. Instead of viewing new species as potential slaves or resources, they were seen as future contributors to a growing community of intelligent life. The vote will be recorded, Admiral Hawkins announced. All in favor of establishing protected development zones for pre-spaceflight civilizations. One by one, the representatives voted in favor of the proposal. Some did so enthusiastically, having genuinely embraced the new galactic order. Others voted reluctantly, understanding that opposition was futile. But the result was unanimous. The measure passes, Dr. Chen recorded. Protected development zones will be established around all 17 worlds within the next standard year. As the meeting concluded, the alien representatives filed out of the chamber with the quiet dignity of those who had learned to accept their new reality. They no longer ruled the galaxy, but many were beginning to understand that they had gained something more valuable than power, the chance to be part of something better than what they had built before. Admiral Hawkins remained in the chamber after the others left, studying the holographic display that showed a galaxy finally at peace. Ships moved along trade routes instead of attack vectors. Resources were devoted to construction rather than destruction. Species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to cooperate for mutual benefit. Do you think it will last? Dr. Chen asked, joining her at the display. It will last as long as we ensure it lasts, Hawkins replied. The galaxy learned that we are not harmless. Now they must learn that we are not conquerors either. We are gardeners, tending a civilization that can grow into something none of us could achieve alone. Outside the Crystal Dome, human ships maintained their silent vigil over Vex Prime.